Good morning and happy Monday. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Now you're heading into an even more fantastic week. We're awfully glad that you could carve out some time and join us this morning on 3+U. We're also really happy that Dr. Tiffany Ahlberg is here this morning to kick off the show with us. She, of course, has Ahlberg Audiology with 2 locations in Cleveland and in Athens. So good to see you.
Good to see you too.
What I so love whenever Tiffany gets here and I'll say, what do you want to talk about today? And you've always kind of thought about whatever's on your heart. So today, what's on your heart is kind of people's hearts, and not just the hearing loss, but the emotional side of finding out and dealing with that, because it's part of it.
Yeah, you just don't realize whenever you lose, whether a sense, it could be your vision, it could be your hearing, it could be, it could be a joint issue, but you go through these stages of, is it really something I have to fix? Is it that bad? Like, when do I want to take care of this? But but I see in my office when people do make that appointment and they come in to figure out what's going on, the emotional side of hearing loss, not only for the person who's going through it and going through the experience of identifying that, hey, I have a problem, and it's hard to accept that.
Yeah.
You know, no one wants to hear it, and I think that's why people put off having a hearing test sometimes, because they're in that denial stage and they don't want to know. And then they finally get to the point, maybe their family has bugged them enough or they've forced them to come in. And it's a hard thing when you have told yourself, I really don't have a problem. Other people are mumbling. You know, the people just don't talk like they used to. These young people, they mumble their words. And then they come in and they find out that they really do have an issue. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. Lots of tears shed in the office because of the emotional side of it. But not only the emotional side of the person that's coming in for the test, but the emotional side of the companion that comes with them, and the anger and the frustration and the just the feelings of, like, you've got to do something about this. You get on my nerves. I'm mad at you. I'm sick of repeating. You know, you have a problem that you're not doing anything about. And so there's that anger too. So there's 2 emotional sides of this.
You know, that's a very, very real thing. And so I'm glad that you're talking about it, because you've seen this often enough that you probably know when to let it happen, and like the conversation happens between the 2 people absent of you, and then when to kind of step in and show them what the solutions and the options are. But it's almost like you feel anyway, I guess, like you're saying goodbye to who you used to be or who you used to know. That's not the case.
Yeah,
but it's what you feel.
Yeah, and I think that in our heads, like with anything, and people may have experienced this with something else, but it's always worse than it really is.
You think it's worse than it is.
Yeah, I mean, and so the solution or identifying the problem, people in their head, they create this scenario of this horrible, like I'm gonna have to wear this big thing in my ear and everybody's gonna see it and I'm gonna feel old, or whatever same thing. I've seen it, you know, with people who were like, I'm too old to get a knee replacement. I'm just gonna limp around my whole life, or, you know, and then they finally do it and they're like, why didn't I do that earlier? Right. But the same thing happens when people fix their hearing, and you know, we fit them with a hearing aid or whatever the solution is, and I don't know how many times a week I hear someone say, why did I wait so long? Why didn't I do this sooner?
Because you've told me that it's like 6 to 7 years is the average time that people will wait. Those are years you don't get back.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm interested in going back to what you said though about the spouse often who's tired of repeating everything, and they miss the conversation that used to come easy, right? Right. There are probably a lot of anger issues there, and maybe they feel like they have to push their emotions down because at least I'm not the one with the hearing loss, but they have their own struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, it takes a lot. You have, you feel this for your parent, or you feel this with your spouse, and you deal with it day in and day out, and there just comes a day to where you just maybe break down and there's like lots of anger, or people start screaming at that person. And maybe they don't mean anything by it, but the other person feels that. They get defensive and arguments start to happen. So there's a lot of emotion.
Okay, so now let's do the comma but. So the comma but is that then once they're there and you've addressed things and you have the knowledge, that's power. Now you really know what's going on. Almost always there's something to be done to help.
And I tell people, okay, you have to accept it first before we do anything. You really have to accept it. We are, at least in my office, you're not going to come in and be diagnosed and somebody make you do something, because it is my belief that you have to wrap your brain around that before you go to that next step. And so some people are like, okay, fix me, let's do this. And other people are like, I'm not ready right now. And it's okay, but like you said, knowledge is power. And knowing what you're dealing with, knowing how bad it is, and then that way it's in your hands to make that next step when you're ready. But that's key, is just to be ready whenever you do take that next step.
Okay, so you've told me before that there is no one look of solving a hearing problem, and there's no one look of a person who has a hearing problem. I mean, we're talking about getting older, but sometimes you see people young who are coming to you. So, but most folks are going to end up with a device in their ear. They're generally pretty small.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't talked about this before, but I personally have a hearing loss, and I wear hearing aids. And when I tell people that I have them in, people don't. They're like, where are they? I mean, they're virtually invisible nowadays.
So I think that you and I have had this conversation slightly off camera, but we haven't ever discussed it before. But you opened the door. So how old were you?
I was in my late 20s when I diagnosed myself, but and I'm one of those people. I knew I had a hearing loss, but I didn't do anything about it. It's probably been about 7 years ago, and it was my daughter saying, "Mom, I'm not repeating myself anymore."
Really? So you were an audiologist, and yet you?
Yeah. So any of those emotions, I totally empathize with, and that's why I have that compassion for people when but you're not ready.
Right.
And even as an audiologist, I made excuses like, it's not that bad, I don't need it right now.
Yeah.
So it took me a while. It took my family, saying something for me to say, I've got to do something.
Tiffany, isn't that a marvelous miracle of how life works?
Yeah.
I mean, because you're such a compassionate, empathetic person anyway, that's your nature. But that you then get to have this full circle moment, I never knew that part of it. I just thought you'd had it for a long, long time.
Nope.
Wow. Okay, I can't hug you because we're both mic'd up, but I will after I show people how to get in touch with you.
Okay.
I mean, you see her here every month, and I promise you, this is who she is. She's just this genuine, wonderful person, and so if you are going to get emotional in the office, you can't find a better person than her to do it with. Athens and Cleveland are the two locations. There are their phone numbers. Online, it's ahlbergaudiology.com. I'm going to go get the Kleenex and hug you.